Welcome to Connected session. Today the theme of our session is Take Action Online for SDGs. My name is Gaëlle Mogli. I'm the founder of Connected, the International Solidarity Network. And today I'm going to introduce you to our ambassador, Adam Rogers. Adam Rogers is giving us the honor to introduce for the first time the book that he's just written. Let me give you a little background about Adam Rogers. Adam has been working for the United Nations for the past 25 years as a communication advisor, as a senior policy advisor for programs and policy, and finally as a global coordinator for the World Alliance of Cities Against Poverty. Before working for the UN, Adam was a journalist, he was an author, and he worked as an entrepreneur. He has written several books on environmental sustainability, social justice, community building, on traveling, and even sustainable dieting. Adam and I met in 2008 when we were both working as UN spokesperson. He was working as the spokesperson of UNDP, and I was working as a spokesperson for the World Meteorological Organization.
Great to be here with you. Thank you for having me on this interview.
This is a pleasure to have you here, Adam. So your book is called Taking Action Online for the Environment, Social Justice and Sustainable Development. Could you please give us a little background and tell us what your book is about, Adam?
This new book is really, it seeks to empower everyone everywhere to do something for the SDGs, for social justice. Because we can no longer sort of sit back and sort of look on the news and see things that we don't like, or we see things whether people are being discriminated against, whether the environment is being polluted or being overexploited, and things where now it's possible, because before we had to kind of get out there and take action on our own, hit the streets with our placards and protest, or take action in the villages, go out and volunteer, which is still good to do. And we should actually get involved with physical action whenever we can. But now, with the availability of the smartphone, with computers, we can actually inform ourselves and connect with actions that we can do online. A lot we can do online. We can engage with people online. Because I believe that every individual in this world has a unique set of skills that we're born with, that we develop. We have our path. In Hindu, they got the Dharma. And part of, I think, when we really live a good life is when we can find out what our skills are. What are we good at? Are we good at engaging with people? Are we good at math? Are we good at science? Are we creative? Are we artists? Do we sing? Do we write? Do we poetry? Whatever we do, we're all unique individuals. But somehow I believe that each person has a piece of the puzzle for creating the perfect world, to create the platform where we can start to explore our potential as a human race. But first we need to, and I believe that the SDGs are the perfect framework kind of to get up to first grade as a human, as a species, as a global community. When poverty ends everywhere, when everyone is empowered, regardless of where they're born or what gender they're born into, if we can all empower to kind of to look within and to find our skills and to contribute, because we're happiest when we contribute. Yes, we can create good lives for ourselves, and we need to pay our bills, and we have children. We want to make sure that our family's happy and that everybody is well off. But really, when we can really kind of focus in on what we can do, and so this book allows you can really online through social media. And so the book talks about how you can create your own website. How do you create your own email directory? How do you set up the different channels? What are the different channels good for? Social media, each channel, whether it's Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, they all have strengths that together fit and reach different audiences in different ways. And so to be able to reach people at all levels and ask them questions, ask questions and find ways that you can then transfer that knowledge into your community. I think it's a really an amazing time. There's a lot going on around that's kind of really disappointing and depressing, but it's also, there's a lot of magic in the air, and there's a lot of potential, a lot of opportunity for people to kind of make a difference, really, and to engage with each other, learn from each other. So that's what the book in a nutshell is about.
So you went a bit beyond a few sentences, but so I have to tell you a little secret. When you asked me to peer review your book, which was really an honor, so you sent it out to me as a PDF document. or no, as a Word document. And I did a mistake when I printed it. And I did like, I think 4 or 6 pages in one. So it was really, really tiny. This is the first book I ever read with a magnifier in my life. And I
you save
really
paper that way.
enjoyed this book. So even reading it with a magnifier, it was one of the best books I've ever read. And this is why, I mean, I really wanted to talk about it, and because I think there are so many advice that you give in your book that can be so useful for anyone working for sustainable development. So maybe we could talk about, we could give a few tips about how to use the digital tools to make a real difference out there.
I think the first with the digital tools is to connect with people. You need to reach out from your smartphone and your laptop and find the people you want to connect with. You know, and before that, even I would say to be clear on what it is that you're interested in. You can't make a difference. I mean, there's 17 sustainable development goals and 169 indicators. You know, there's a lot. It's like a menu. But what are you interested in? So first, it's being clear on what difference, you know, what area that you're interested in. You know, is it women's rights and women's empowerment? Is it children, you know, and education? Is it, you know, diseases, so, you know, from malaria to cholera to yellow fever to COVID? What area can you bring your expertise to bear? So it's very important first to be very clear on what it is that where you want to make a difference. Then reach out and connect with the people. You can go, you can search, you can hashtag, search, and Twitter. Twitter is a very good platform for this. Twitter is probably one of the best, I think. Facebook's okay with friends and family, but if you want to connect with the experts, it's definitely Twitter. Then you can take material you learn from Twitter. You know, first follow, you know, find out, do the hashtags, find out the people, and then go under people, find out who's the influencers in your particular area and follow them. And when you follow them and you see their tweets, engage with them, ask questions. That's the thing, is ask questions on Twitter. When you get that information, then you can share it to your network, say on Facebook. A lot of people are on Facebook. I mean, 1/3 of the planet practically is on Facebook. Then, and you have your friends and family. So you can like do a lot of good by getting the right information, balanced information from different sources, digesting it and putting it in your voice, and sharing it out to the networks you have already on Facebook and LinkedIn. So that's one way, is find out where the people are connected through which channels, bring them back through and share them back out through your networks, you know, and especially looking for action-oriented advice, things that you can do and your friends can do and your networks can do, your family can do. Share that action-oriented advice, inspiring advice, and things that we can do offline. So you get the information, you get inspired, you connect with people online, but then you bring it offline and you do something in concrete in the real world, which is great. You know, finding out new ways to recycle, you know, new ways, new foods to eat for different diets. Knowing, for example, I mean, I'm very passionate about the impact of the production of livestock, especially beef. Find out about that. Don't take my word for it, but doing the research and connect with the experts, and then changing your own life. Maybe have you know, reduce some types of foods that are having a very negative impact on the planet, and then share that information out with your friends and family. That in itself will have a huge impact, positive impact on improving the environment, and then lifting people out of poverty, and saving the rainforest, all of that.
See, when I created Connected 3 years ago, I knew I knew that I wanted you to become one of our ambassadors, and I'm very glad that you are now on board and you're an ambassador for Connected, because and what I love about your book is when you make people understand that everyone has a role to play, and that you don't have to work for a nonprofit, for a UN organization to really have an impact. Anyone from behind their computer can really do something for what is close to their hearts, whether it is the environment, whether it is poverty, and I love in your book first of all, I love the way it's structured, because you can really go directly to what matters to you, or what's in your mind, like especially as a communication expert, if you really want to go into LinkedIn for a moment, or then you read all the tips, and same for Twitter, and but it's not only for professionals. Who is your audience? Who are you? Who did you write this book for?
Pretty much everyone who has a smartphone or is online and maybe has experimented a little bit with social media, primarily, and people who care and want to make a difference. And they might get frustrated saying, well, what can I do? Well, you can do a lot just through your computer. But it's also written for people in organizations that want to take their organization that might be doing a lot of work locally, but then kind of take it to the next level. Maybe they want to find out how to fundraise. So I have a whole chapter on how you can raise funds online. What's crowdsourcing all about? What's GoFundMe? There are many opportunities online to raise money. I know I've a chapter in the book on social media for civil disobedience. For where these revolutions that are taking place in Minsk, in Tunisia, the Arab Spring, all that. How is that happening? How are they connecting and using? I mean, it's very interesting to know how they're able to use tools like Telegram. This recent uprising after the elections in Belarus, where they organized the whole platform to be able to communicate in the protests. But they moved outside of Belarus, so all the ones in the country got shut down. But the Telegram servers were outside in Poland, and how they were able to share advice and like that. But also the risks of that as well, of putting too much online when you're protesting actions of government, or say if a democracy was subverted. And so it's for that too. So it's really written to show that there's a lot that we can do online, besides just social media. It's not just about the social ills and not being able to talk to people. Social media has been blamed for actually a lot of social problems, but we can turn that around, because by connecting with people, that is social, and then finding ways to inspire other people to take action, whether it's recycling, or whether it's volunteering in a refugee camp, or whether it's changing a diet away from one that's destroying the environment to one that's more helpful. So it's about turning it around, the social media, but keeping the action face to face as well, being able to connect with people. But like what we're doing here, we're talking through Zoom. This also is a way of, I also talk in the book about how to set up Zoom conference calls, how to organize a webinar. So you have something that you want to teach the world, a particular skill set, could be anything, that you have something to contribute. You can organize a webinar and build up an audience and be able to, used to be you'd have to rent an auditorium or a theater hall and print out, marketing pamphlets, posters around town, try to get people to come from your community so that you can share the knowledge that you have, that could bring a lot of good to the world, or good to your community. But now with this platform of Zoom and many other platforms that I review in the book, to be able, and also talk about how to organize a webinar, how do you title it, and how you ask questions, how you bring in information at different points, whether you have a panel or like a Q&A with just one person. So exactly what you're doing now, I'm able to share my experience and also share this book through a broader audience, through social media, in a way. It's a broader interpretation of social media, but it is. And then you use social media to reinforce. You have a platform for a webinar, but then you can use social media to market that webinar. And then you build up a community of contacts and you ask them to market it to their network. So there's a lot to do and a very little budget to be able to share your expertise, your passion, your insights with a large audience.
I think where we are very much in the same line, you and I, and with everything that we do, is that we also believe in solidarity, and not just among people, but also amongst nonprofits themselves, because I'm sure you've seen throughout your career that there is a lot of competition out there amongst organizations, amongst nonprofits, and maybe it's time for change, and by working together and by helping each other out and by, promoting each other, even if we're working for two different organizations, that's really the way forward. And we're all in the end working towards the same goals. So did you have this in mind by writing your book?
I think solidarity, but competition, there's nothing wrong with some healthy competition, because it helps ensure that, that the best quality rises to the top. And whether it's organizations or companies or individuals, if we have a like tenure or a lifetime contract, lifetime employment, where we don't have to improve our skill set or get better at things because there's nobody else, because I have the job. That doesn't work as well either. Even the best, few people might think continue with the passion of working and being the best they can be. But quite often without that little bit of competition to see who will get it, to get the right, but not only to a limit. It's a competition within a family, where we support each other. And if somebody else, say if you were applying for a grant or a job or something and somebody else gets it, you feel good about that in a way. Oh, well, I wish it came to me, but that might be the better person for that particular job, and seeing the end result. And so this person might bring better results for that particular experience. Who knows?
How do you see that nonprofits can really help each other and that tagging each other, resharing each other's posts, and that's also what brings to more impact.
I would say, that I truly believe that we succeed the best when we help others to succeed. By when people show that I'm quoting this person, or I'm encouraging this person, helping others to succeed, we succeed better. But by excluding people or pushing them down in the kind of competition you might be referring to, or not being all that open to the tagging and sharing and all, we don't succeed as quickly. We succeed really when we help others to succeed, whether as an organization or life, or it's almost might be kind of like spiritual in a way, karmic in a way, that by when we bring good to other people, good then comes to us, without putting a formula on it.
What comes around comes around, or something like this. How do you say in English?
Yeah, and it has to be in a way that we're not expecting, okay, I'm helping you, I want to expect you to come and help me. That doesn't work. It's not the same thing. But just out of our heart, when we have an open heart and we help others to succeed in solidarity, because we're all working towards creating a better world. And then it all, and I think it's like the tide rises and lifts all the boats.
And, right now with COVID, we live through such a difficult time where, very well how hard it is for nonprofits to raise funds at the moment. It's really difficult. I think people who have been donating all their lives those days are tending to maybe save more. And when you think about it, there are lots of people who did lose their jobs, but there are also lots of people who saved money on gasoline and saved money on not going shopping, not going to the restaurant. But it is true, it is a fact that donations are quite rare, and that people kind of are more concerned about their national, what's happening around them, or something close to them, and maybe international aid is nowadays not the priority. But what do you think about it? Did you also identify this as a problem?
I think if you're fundraising for an organization, it's always going to be a challenge. You need to find out where the supply is, in the sense of where the problems that people are trying to solve, and then go in the middle of that and show that you can do the best job at the lowest price, and that you can help them fulfill their mission of addressing this particular challenge. So it's really hard to identify your own challenge and then try to raise money for that. I mean, that's good, but you have to create a demand for that. And you have to convince people, convince funders where there's money that this is a big problem, and it's a good for you to want to solve it. I mean, that's a much bigger challenge. And you really need to find out. I mean, most sources of funding prioritize it. Donors have their priorities. So whether, like I said, it's women's empowerment or disarmament or decertification or poverty eradication schemes in a particular country, and they all have their countries. Like funders in Britain, whether DFID or any others, they fund projects in English-speaking countries, right? Or same in France, they'll go with the France. So you have countries will prioritize issues and the themes, and they'll prioritize geography. But even then, it's tough because they'll be giving funding to multilaterals, to the bilaterals, and to civil society organizations, and those that will make them look good, because they want to look good when they're giving funding, and they want the funding to show results so that they can look good, and then they look good because the funders are all getting money from somewhere, right? Whether it's taxpayers, if it's a like a government funding agency, they're getting money from tax revenue that they have to then justify back. So they need to show results with the flag, which isn't always the best. So it's complicated, but it's like in the private sector, in the sense that you need to find out who's funding what for what reason, and then convince them somehow that you have the solution for them to make their life easier. Like you have all this money and you want to help refugees in Syria. Well, we have this network, and that brings funding and sources directly to the camps, directly to the beneficiaries, and we can show how if you put the money through us, that we can show positive, concrete results that will make you look good. That kind of thing.
What I really liked in your book also is that since you wrote it this year, you're just literally finishing to write it down, but you do mention what we're going through with COVID and all the because we're talking about, many people said that we hope to go back to normal, but maybe we need to go to a new normal. And maybe it's time to change our way of doing things. And so, do you think you're giving advice that in a way to also change this new normal?
I don't think we can change. I mean, the new normal will come out of consequence. Out of the new normal will come out of the environment and the pressures that have created new opportunities. So part of the new normal would be, for example, we won't travel as much at the UN, with the UN, because we can meet by Zoom. That would be a new normal. New normals would be that people won't, I think, have the same space. Personal space will change. In terms of the mechanics of supply and demand and the priorities of government and what they're, I can't really think that out of there's still a lot of things are self-motivated and motivated by a number of factors. But altruism, in the sense of wanting to find the best way in providing funding or support or doing things, I don't think that's so deeply within our human nature, that we take care of things that are going to benefit first our immediate circle. The priorities, I don't think there'll be a new normal so much in that sense. It'd be much harder to create. Look in the U.S., whether it be a new normal, in my own country, where people wouldn't wear masks because they thought it would make them look like socialists, because there's a whole half the country, they're so, against any concept of liberal, that they wouldn't even wear a mask. So they don't, and this happens all over the world, people aren't questioning. They're getting information, they're getting signals, messages, and they're not questioning or penetrating or thinking for themselves in many cases. And whether or not that'll change, I wish there'd be a new normal where people were more enlightened and asking questions and having, a sense of compassion. And what we need is more compassion in this world. But, not pessimistic, I hope for the best. But when I see people in many countries not wearing a mask in the height of the COVID, and they know that they might have the virus in themselves and could easily spread it to others. But for them, it's so important not to wear a mask. That's like the opposite of compassion, or it's not really thinking. But, like most people in this world, you put a gun in their hand and tell them to shoot the other person, they won't do it, because people do have a sort of sanctity of life. And if they see a child suffering on the sidewalk, they will help. We do have a compassion as well when it's directly there. But when it takes a little bit more thinking on the next steps, half the world maybe will stop and think and try to do the right thing. Like Martin Luther King says, it's always the right time to do the right thing. But so many people, they just don't know, they don't think through enough to know what the right thing is, or for them, the right thing is like a different set of values. And I think that we need a new normal on the set of values. I mean, maybe that's what you're asking more, if we have a new normal in that sense. Mm-hmm. And I'm just not sure about that, whether it's going to come quick enough or it's going to come right after COVID, whether we'll just fall back into our old patterns or not. I mean, we all hope for the best. We hope for solidarity, people caring about each other and wanting to do the right thing to help out as many people as they can and see the challenges. And that's the side that I want to believe. But I think there's still a lot of people out there who for them, there are different values and sense of independence and wanting to I mean, really like, freedom of speech, freedom of will, and be completely free is more important than having certain structures in society to ensure that everyone is safe. Because some people, they believe it steps on their freedom. For example, if I have to wear a mask, and they fight against it. And then that's, it's a bit disappointing. I think we need more education and, on the right things and more compassion.
So when we created Connected, the International Solidarity Network, so in brief, for people who don't know what it is, it's a combined humanitarian social network and giving platform where you can basically choose the project or the nonprofit that really responds to the cause that you want to follow, that you want to know more about, and then when or if people give a donation, then 100% actually goes to the nonprofits. When I introduced this to you, did you think that was something that had a potential?
It does. It needs to be marketed to the right, to get out to the people, especially to individual donors who want to know that their contributions, whether it's $10 or $100 or $1,000, euros or Swiss francs, is going directly to the beneficiaries or to projects that they believe in. And if they can get, and whether they give 100 or a government's giving 100 million, reporting on results, ensuring that the projects that are aligned or within ConnectAid report regularly on the funds that they receive. And so you have to work carefully to make sure that the right organizations are there and that they can report on it. To ensure that people can continue to support a project or to donate in any way. Organizations like Save the Children do this. They connect a donor directly with a child. You get the picture of the child, you get the name, and then you get report cards coming through. And so that helps sustain and continue the donations that are giving. But yeah, it's very good. It's because a lot of opportunities where people give money, they don't know where it goes. Or fundraising from some very big NGOs even that have mobilized, won't say any names particularly because the cases are out there where they may mobilize resources, take in contributions for one big disaster, but then they don't use it on that disaster. They may keep it on their own and use it on something else. Not that there's anything wrong with that if they're doing good work, but people who make donations want to know that there's transparency with the money that they're giving and that the results are coming from that. And then if the funds are going to be used for something else, you check back with them. That we rose X number of resources for this particular disaster, but there are other people also contributing to that. And we only say spent 50. You go back to the donors and say however big or small they are, and get their permission and somehow involve them in the decision, then maybe to spend it on something else. I'm just talking off the cuff here, but we need the transparency and the connection with those people who are contributing and reducing the amount that's spent on the overhead.
I might cut. Where am I? Yeah, you're losing your voice. Do you want a drink?
I have a tea here.
No, yeah, I forgot to mention. I actually forgot to mention that you are one of the SDG influencer in the world. I know that at one point, about 2 years ago, you were just after Bill Gates, or before or after Bill Gates.
Bill Gates was one,
and you were second internationally. And I think in this book, you're being so generous because you're sharing everything. It felt to me when I read it that you're sharing everything that you've learned throughout your career in such a structured and well-written way. And you're sharing this for others to also do the same and be impactful in the messages that they share and in the tools that they use and I wanted to thank you for that, because it's quite rare to for people in our careers to be that generous and to not keep your knowledge for yourself, but you're actually sharing it.
Yeah, of course, yeah. That's the whole point, is just to really to share with as many people as possible, because the focus is on the SDGs winning, not me having any proprietary information. I've built up, a rather large following and different social media networks, and people tag me so they get my attention so that I can go see what they're doing. And I benefit from that, because otherwise, I wouldn't be able to follow everything that everyone is doing. So when people tag me or they mention me in their tweets or something, then I'm able to go and see what they're doing, and then share it with other networks. So it's like a connector role of sharing, but the focus and the value is on the knowledge that's being shared. It's not on the person who's sharing it. So if I can encourage other people to share it as much as I, then if the SDGs win, everybody wins. And I'm at a point in my career where that's where I'm mostly focused on. But pretty much I've always been focused on that. But the book really it takes what I've been able to.
What's your Twitter again? It's Adam Rogers 2030, right? On Twitter. So we encourage everyone to follow you, and thank you so much, because you've been really helping connect aid. To be honest, I'm not so much of a Twitter fan. I'm much more active on LinkedIn, which I thought that maybe it's not your favorite one. So maybe.
Let me clarify that. Each one is different, completely different. So LinkedIn is for businesses, and pretty much for businesses, and private sector is very active there.
And also nonprofits, and it depends.
Nonprofits, but the nonprofits, it's a place where you have a page and you can connect and share. But really, to be able to quickly share information, you need to be on all of them. Twitter is one where heads of state, prime ministers, heads of all the organizations, they're communicating on Twitter. They don't communicate on LinkedIn. You might have some messages going back and forth, but it's a lot heavier, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a place where you'll have your profile, your resume, really. And so if somebody wants to, on Twitter, if I hear from someone on Twitter, I can look at their profile. But if I want to know about them, I go to LinkedIn. I search on their name in LinkedIn, and then I can see the depth of who that person is and what they do.
In a way, it's all connected. It's really all connected. It's just not one social media alone. It's really, you really need to go
for each one for a different purpose.
Exactly.
And a different audience. Different purpose, different audience, different message. Because the medium is the message, right? That's in communication. The medium is the message, and so when you're communicating through LinkedIn, that in itself is a message for something, and being very clear about that. When you're connecting and sharing tweets, that's another message where it's like more casual conversation, and within the tweets you can actually include links to websites, links to resources, images. Instagram is another one. So you need to know, and the book tries to explain this, how each one fits together, because each one has value that brings in. And you can't, say, because like LinkedIn it's more corporate and more business, and you have a profile, and then you can publish. It's also kind of a blog publishing platform, not as good as Medium or some others, but it's okay for the people who are on LinkedIn, who spend more time on LinkedIn. Facebook, again, has its strengths. And there's some overlap, but really they come together as one. But knowing how each one fits together, and the audience even an audience might be on each one, but how that audience receives the information will be different, and how they sense that information, and how they act on that information, or how they share information. So the same people on LinkedIn.
The problem is when you're working in the humanitarian environment, that your time is kind of precious, because there's just so much to do. So I'm just very curious, how much time do you spend a day on social media?
All day.
All day.
If I'm working on something, it's there, and so I'll go back and check.
Okay.
And if I'm sitting on a bus or a ski lift, or if doing something for private, I'm always on, I'm checking it for the social. So I'm always interacting, or I'm getting pinged by different people. And so it's part of my life, because, it's like, whether you're, speaking with somebody, or sending a message, or sending a letter, it's all about communication. Sometimes I'll do downtime. I shut everything off. If I'm skiing or if I'm meditating or doing a hike, even if I'm hiking, I hiked 300 kilometers across the Alps. So I walked from Chamonix to Zermatt 2 years ago. It took me 23 days. But I had a hotspot, and so I'd hike for 10 hours or 8 hours in a day, where I'd stop for a break and I'd check out the hotspot. I'd be a little bit on social media. So I'm never completely off. I'm always somehow connected.
Okay. But in your book, you give lots of tips that I believe will help people save time also, because sometimes you can spend a lot of time on social media, but it's if you don't do it the right way, you end up wasting time.
Exactly.
And I really enjoyed all the tips that you're giving that are very practical, very to the point. And in the end, I think we don't have to spend all day like you do to make a change.
No, you can. It just depends. It's not. I'm trying to say it's not like something that you devote. Okay, now it's going to be social media, but it's something you kind of integrate into your life. You don't always have to, and it's good to have downtime. It's good to shut things off. But when you're waiting in line at the supermarket, it's also good to be kind of mindful, meditate, vipassana, kind of, that's also good. But, I'll also, if it's a long line at the supermarket or I'm waiting to get on a bus, I get on, I check my tweets, and I'll do that as well. But being very clear on your purpose. See, mine is very broad-based because I'm writing about social media. And so it's very broad-based. And I'm also very supporting as a consultant some UN country offices around the world. And so I'm helping them to amplify their messages. So when I get messages that I believe in, I'm helping them create their messages. And then it goes out from their accounts. And then I try to amplify those messages out to specific target audiences. If I want, a prime minister or an ambassador or something to be able then to retweet from his account, I need to be able to have something that's really well crafted and then sent out. If somebody sends it from LinkedIn account, it only goes into the messages. Honestly, I hardly ever read my LinkedIn messages because there are a lot of unsolicited things. It's not really that targeted, and they're not message driven. They're just kind of sequential. And so, but on the tweet messages that are direct or when I'm tagged, it's more substantive, and it's concrete and something I can react to, and it's quicker. But being very clear on what is your purpose will help reduce the amount of time that you spend on social media and make you much more effective on social media. What is your clear purpose and who you're trying to reach and how you try to reach them to get whatever action that you want from them.
You're even giving advice in your book about things about photos, because you're a big photographer. You are so that was so useful to just because Instagram, we didn't talk about Instagram, but it's a media where I think nonprofits can really have a big presence.
Instagram and Twitter. Twitter always have a good photo that you own, that you've taken. And there's some tips I provide in the book on how you place a subject in the foreground and your background and how the image should look. But also there are nowadays on the internet, and I go through many of the sources where you can get free images, but make sure that you have the right to share that photo. If you just take something off Google Images, it could be copyrighted or somebody, even though there's more flexibility there. But you can take images and tag people appropriately in there so it shows up in their notifications. So you have the content of the tweet with the substance and the links on what it is exactly that you're trying to say, and then the image that supports that, a very strong image that supports it. Instagram, I think it's very light in that sense. Instagram is very much more
maybe it's
vanity stuff.
Not your generation, also.
Yeah, but it's very superficial. Most of the time, the people share on there, it's about it's like also with what am I trying to say with the video? With the being able to do it on video. There could be a lot of superficial stuff that people are used to seeing through, and so they're going on there just to see selfies or clothes or makeup, how to do makeup. But there's also, as I provide in the book, reaching these people with important messages. You have to be creative. You have to be very creative in how you do that.
When did you just finish writing your book exactly, and who is writing the foreword for your book?
Yeah, Helen Clark is writing the foreword, and she I just received it today. So the book I finished. The book went through several review processes.
Maybe tell people who Ellen Clark is.
She's the former administrator of UNDP. Before that, she was the Prime Minister of New Zealand. So I worked with her. She was one of, I had many administrators during my 22 years at UNDP, but she was one of my boss's boss while I was at UNDP. And then she returned to New Zealand and is active in civil affairs and education and information communication. So, yeah, so she wrote the foreword. It's very exciting. So when it comes out, it'll go to press probably tomorrow or the next day. I was waiting on the foreword to get that, but the book itself, came back from the editors about 3 weeks ago.
Okay, so anyone should be able to find it in January, maybe on
January.
Amazon.
It should be available sort of January 10th or something like that.
Okay, so let's.
It's just I want it to be dated 2021, so then it'll be fresh. If it comes out in December 2020, then when it's available, it'll be a 2020 book in 2021. So it'd be good to have it out in January.
So again, the title of the book is Taking Action Online for the Environment, Social Justice and the Sustainable Development by Adam Rogers. And thank you so much, Adam, for this interview. And we look forward to your book getting out. And I wish you all the best. And
thank you. This is the first interview for the book.
Yeah.
I've granted you the first interview. When it comes out, there'll be more interviews. I'll do more interviews, but I'm very happy to have been able to do this first one with you, Gail.
That was my pleasure. Goodbye.